Maybe you used to be the one who always showed up. Family gatherings, coffee chats, church events, birthday dinners. But somewhere along the way, you stopped going. Not out of anger, not even out of sadness, but something inside you just changed. And maybe you've wondered, why don't I feel like going anymore? Have I become distant? Am I giving up? The answer may surprise you. In this video, we'll explore 6 eye-opening reasons why many people over 70 stop visiting others, and why it's not selfish, strange, or wrong. In fact, it's often a quiet sign of clarity, healing, and wisdom. Truth number 1, your body has new limits. There was a time when visiting people felt simple. You could get dressed, grab your keys, and be out the door in minutes. A trip across town was nothing. A gathering with noise, music, and energy, you could handle it just fine. But now, something feels different. You pause before accepting an invitation. You consider how far it is, where you'll sit, if the room has stairs, or whether you'll have the energy to engage. That hesitation, it's not laziness. It's not antisocial behavior. It's your body whispering a truth you've only recently begun to listen to. I have limits now, and I need you to honor them. After 70, the body changes in subtle, sometimes frustrating ways. Your joints ache more than they used to. Your feet get sore after short walks. Your balance isn't quite what it was. A night of poor sleep can make a whole day feel heavy. So when someone says it's just a quick visit, they don't realize that for you, it might mean spending an hour getting ready, worrying about stairs, parking, or seating, sitting too long in an uncomfortable chair, not being able to rest when your body needs to. What looks easy to others may now require careful planning, effort, and recovery for you. Whether it's driving yourself or relying on someone else, transportation has become a challenge. You may not enjoy driving in traffic anymore. Or maybe your eyesight or reflexes aren't what they used to be. You hesitate to ask for a ride, not wanting to bother anyone, and so you simply stay home. This isn't avoidance. It's a quiet kind of wisdom that says, if the journey exhausts me more than the visit fills me, maybe home is where I need to be right now. Large gatherings, loud music, background conversations, these may have once energized you. Now they leave you drained. The effort of listening through noise, the mental juggling to keep up with fast-paced chatter, the strain of trying to stay social when all you want is stillness. It's not that you don't love the people. It's that your nervous system asks for calm now, not chaos. You no longer recover the same way you used to, and you've started to protect your inner peace like never before. So if you've noticed yourself saying no more often, if the thought of visiting leaves you tired before you even start, if your body seems to vote for rest over interaction, know this. You're not being distant. You're being honest. You've spent a lifetime showing up for others. Now your body is asking you to show up for yourself with tenderness, with awareness, and without guilt. You still care. You're still connected. But now you listen to the quiet wisdom that says, my body is changing, and that matters too. Truth number 2, you value peace more than people pleasing. There was a time when you said yes to everything. You showed up even when you were tired. You listened even when the conversation was draining. You stayed longer than you wanted, smiled more than you felt, and said, it's okay, even when it wasn't. Because that's what nice people do. That's what good friends, loving mothers, faithful siblings, and responsible neighbors are expected to do. But somewhere along the journey, maybe after 60, maybe after 70, something shifted inside you. The voice that used to say, don't disappoint them, was slowly replaced by another voice, one that said, don't abandon yourself. For decades, you may have been the reliable one, the caretaker, the listener, the peacemaker. You've likely been praised for it too, for always being there, for never saying no, for putting others first. But deep inside, you may have felt what many seniors eventually discover, that always saying yes comes at a cost, that pleasing others often means disregarding your own needs, that peace kept on the outside is not always peace kept within. With age comes clarity. And one of the clearest truths is this: your peace is sacred, and not everyone gets access to it. You start to realize that protecting your energy is no longer optional. It's essential. That peace and quiet, the kind that fills you up instead of draining you, is now more valuable than approval, appearances, or being liked. You're no longer willing to stay in conversations that feel false, to visit out of guilt, to smile through discomfort just to keep others comfortable. You let go of guilt, one no at a time. It doesn't happen overnight. At first, saying no feels selfish. You worry what others will think. You imagine them disappointed, confused, even hurt. But slowly, with practice, something changes. You say no, and nothing terrible happens. You skip the gathering and feel rested instead of regretful. You speak your truth and find that the world doesn't end. And most importantly, you begin to feel like yourself again. It's not about cutting people off, it's about coming home to yourself. People pleasing taught you to look outward, but peace invites you to look inward. Now, when you decline a visit or leave early or choose silence over small talk, it's not because you're distant, it's because you've chosen yourself. Your calm, your rest, your right to say, this is enough for today. So if you've found yourself visiting less, not because you don't care, but because you're tired of pretending, know this: you are not being selfish, you are being self respecting. You're no longer trading your peace for politeness. And you're learning that the most meaningful connection is the one you keep with your own soul. Truth number 3: you've learned who truly shows up for you. There's something that happens quietly as you grow older. You stop reaching out as much. You stop making the first move. You sit back, not out of spite, but out of curiosity. And you wonder, if I stop initiating, who will still call? If I don't visit them, will they visit me? If I go quiet, will anyone notice? And slowly, painfully, or sometimes peacefully, you begin to see the truth. Not everyone you showed up for will show up for you. For years, maybe even decades, you were the one who sent the holiday cards, remembered the birthdays, called to check in, made the visits, brought the food, the gifts, the comfort of. You did it out of love, yes, but also out of habit, out of hope, out of a deep desire to stay connected. But over time, something in you began to ask, am I the only one keeping this bond alive? And when you gently step back, not with anger, just with stillness, some relationships simply disappeared. When you stop doing all the reaching, all the remembering, all the driving, you start to see who notices your absence. Sometimes that silence is heartbreaking. Other times, it's liberating because you finally understand who checks in with no reason, who listens without waiting to speak, who values your presence, not just your help, and who perhaps was never as invested as you thought. There's a quiet grief that comes with realizing some relationships were one sided, but there's also clarity, freedom, relief. You no longer feel obligated to keep dead plants alive. You stop watering connections that never bloomed back toward you. And in that space, you begin to nurture something even more precious: your own self worth. You now choose mutual, meaningful bonds. You don't need a dozen friends. You don't need a full calendar. You don't need everyone to understand your heart. You just need the few who call without needing a reason, remember the little things, respect your pace, show up when it matters. Even if it's only one or two people, that's enough, because now you're done chasing love. You're only holding on to the love that stays. So if you've pulled back from visiting people and they haven't reached out in return, don't take it as failure. Take it as a filter. You've spent a lifetime showing up. Now it's time to see who shows up for you. And the answer may surprise you, because sometimes the people who matter most, the ones who truly see you, don't need constant contact to stay connected. They just care, quietly, genuinely, and without being asked. Truth number 4: time feels too precious for small talk. When you were younger, time felt endless. You could spend hours chatting about nothing in particular, linger in crowded rooms, talk just to talk. It wasn't about the depth, it was about the presence. You wanted to be around people, feel included, keep up, stay in the loop. But now, something's changed. You still care, you still love people, but now you value something more than conversation: connection. And if a visit doesn't bring that, you're more willing than ever to simply stay home. As you age, your understanding of time becomes sharper. You start to feel it in your bones, the reality that not every hour is promised, not every day is predictable, and your time is no longer something you're willing to waste. You begin to ask, is this how I want to spend my afternoon? Will this conversation leave me feeling full or just tired? Is there something more meaningful I could be doing with this moment? And when the answer leans towards silence, rest, or solitude, You choose that without guilt. It's not that you're rude, it's not that you've become antisocial, it's that surface level conversations no longer feel worth the energy. The weather, politics, gossip, comparison, repetition of the same stories without curiosity or care. You don't have the same desire to fill the space with chatter. You'd rather share a few quiet, heartfelt words than an hour of talking without meaning. At this stage in life, your heart craves depth, not drama, not busyness, not noise. You want the kind of moments that feel like soul food. A genuine how are you? A warm silence between old friends, a memory shared with tenderness, a conversation where you feel seen, not just heard. And if those moments are rare, you'd rather not go at all. Because now you don't just guard your time, you guard your energy. When you choose not to visit people as often, it's not always because of physical fatigue. Sometimes it's emotional fatigue. You're tired of pretending, tired of smiling through noise, tired of leaving gatherings feeling more alone than when you arrived. So instead, you choose a cup of tea in a familiar chair, a walk in the fresh air, a quiet afternoon of reflection, or simply stillness. And in that stillness, you don't feel empty, you feel restored. So, if you've been declining more invitations, if you've chosen presence with yourself over performance with others, if you've stepped away from conversations that feel shallow, know this. You're not being distant, you're being discerning. You've earned the right to spend your time with intention, to choose depth over small talk, and to fill your hours not with noise, but with meaning. Truth number 5. Some places carry painful memories. There are certain places you used to go without thinking. The home of an old friend, a family member's house, a park where you used to walk, even a dining room filled with laughter that once belonged to people no longer here. But now, your feet hesitate, your chest tightens, and even if the invitation is warm, something inside you whispers, I'm not sure I can go back there. And maybe you've asked yourself, why don't I want to visit anymore? Is something wrong with me? No, nothing is wrong. You're simply discovering what so few talk about out loud. Some places don't just hold people, they hold memories. And those memories can feel heavier than we expect. As we grow older, we begin to carry more loss. A spouse who's no longer here, a sibling whose laugh once echoed in a particular room, a friend who used to sit beside us on that couch, sipping tea and telling stories. You return to the same place, but the feeling is different. The air feels quieter, the light feels dimmer, the silence feels sharper, and even if you smile, a part of you aches. You realize it's not the place that hurts, it's the absence within it. Sometimes grief looks like declining an invitation. Sometimes it sounds like, I'm not up for it today. You all go ahead without me. I'll catch up another time. Not because you don't care, but because you do. So much, so deeply, that being in that space feels like holding a memory too large for your chest. You're not trying to forget. You're just protecting your heart from being overwhelmed. There's a difference between running away and choosing peace. You've lived enough to know that healing has its own pace, and forcing yourself into rooms that reopen old wounds doesn't make you stronger. It makes you human. Some visits you delay because your heart needs more time. Others you may never return to, and that's okay. Not every chapter needs to be reread. Some are meant to be held quietly in memory, not relived in presence. There's nothing selfish about protecting yourself. There's nothing wrong with choosing where you feel safe, emotionally as much as physically. You don't owe explanations for the places you avoid. You don't have to apologize for choosing your own emotional boundaries. Some places hurt, and your soul knows that, even when your mind tries to push through. So if you've declined an invitation not because of fatigue, but because of feeling too much, if a home, a table, or a street holds more sorrow than comfort now, know this. You're not avoiding life. You're navigating grief with grace. You're honoring the love that once lived in those places by giving your heart the space it needs to breathe again. Truth number 6, you're finally at home within yourself. There's a quiet beauty that comes with age. You no longer feel the urge to be everywhere, to attend every event, to fill every hour with people, plans, or conversations. Not because you're sad, not because you're bitter, but because for the first time in your life, you feel at home within yourself. In your younger years, being alone could feel uncomfortable. You looked to others to feel whole, to feel valid, heard, included. But now, solitude isn't emptiness, it's ease. You no longer seek your worth in how busy your day is or how full your calendar looks. You've found something deeper, a kind of companionship that doesn't come from others. It comes from within. You've lived through decades of noise. You've navigated drama, responsibility, expectations, heartbreak, and pressure. Now you enjoy the silence, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is finally settling. You savor a quiet afternoon with a cup of tea, a familiar chair beside the window, listening to old songs that bring back memories, talking to yourself, kindly, patiently, like a friend. You no longer avoid your own thoughts, you embrace them. And that, dear one, is a rare and beautiful kind of freedom. When you stop visiting people as often, it doesn't mean you've disconnected. It means you've reconnected with yourself. You no longer feel obligated to show up just to prove you're still active, engaged, or the same as before. You've let go of who you were and grown into who you are now. Not everyone will understand this version of you, and that's okay because you understand you, and that's more than enough. You've discovered that life doesn't have to be full to be fulfilling. You no longer measure your days by activity, but by peace. You no longer judge your value by productivity, but by presence. And you've learned something few people realize. The most meaningful conversations often happen in silence. The deepest healing comes in solitude, and the truest joy is not found out there. It's found right here in your own heart. So if you've stopped visiting as much, if you choose your home, your quiet, your rituals, if your soul now prefers simplicity over stimulation, know this: you haven't disappeared, you've arrived home at last within yourself. This is not the end of connection, it's the beginning of a more rooted, sacred kind. And from this place of stillness, you can love, give, and live more honestly than ever before. If you've found yourself visiting people less, choosing peace over plans, preferring stillness over socializing, please remember you are not becoming cold. You are becoming clear. With age comes a gentle wisdom. You no longer go where your soul doesn't feel safe. You no longer chase what doesn't return. You no longer trade your rest for empty obligations. And that, dear friend, is not distance, it is dignity. If this video spoke to something you felt but couldn't put into words, share your thoughts in the comments. When did you begin choosing quiet over visits, and what helped you feel at peace with it? Like this video if it brought you comfort. Subscribe to True Senior Wisdom for more reflections made gently, just for you. We're not here to judge your journey. We're here to walk beside it with kindness, calm, and care. You are not alone. You are not fading. You are simply finally coming home to yourself. One breath, one boundary, one quiet no at a time.